Welcome to the Building and Energy Electrical Supervisors Safety Presentation. This presentation has been developed for supervisors and employers to provide you with information and tools to help your workers, in particular apprentices, to be aware of the dangers present in the electrical industry and how to work safely at all times. The electrical industry is very diverse. Whether you work in generation, networks, or customer installations, there are inherent risks when working with electricity. Our aim is to assist you on how you keep your workers, in particular apprentices, safe at work. Safe work practices and appropriate levels of supervision are essential. We want to make it absolutely clear that the employer and supervising electrician have responsibility to provide effective supervision to workers, in particular apprentices, to ensure that they work safely. A culture where apprentices and less experienced workers feel free to ask questions and raise concerns if they are unsure should be developed and encouraged. Fortunately, there have been no electrical worker fatalities in Western Australia in the last 3 years. However, it is alarming that the number of reported electric shocks continues to rise. Many of these shock incidents could have been fatal had the circumstances been slightly different. However, there have been deaths of electrical workers in other states more recently. A particularly relevant example is that in the 12 months from 2015 to 16, there were 4 electrical worker fatalities in Victoria, and tragically, 3 of those were electrical apprentices. This photo shows an actual site where an electrical apprentice died. At the time of the fatality, the supervising electrician was in the process of live testing to try and identify why the lights weren't working. There is no good reason to test live in this circumstance. A continuity test could have been carried out with the circuit isolated to find the fault. Building and Energy wants to do everything possible to help you prevent this happening at your workplace. Every job must be made safe to work on. The isolation point of the circuits or equipment that are to be worked on must be identified. The circuit or equipment must be isolated, proven to be de-energised by testing, and then secured by a lock and danger tag at the point of isolation. It is the supervising electrician's responsibility to ensure the circuit is correctly isolated and tested. An apprentice may only isolate and test the circuit themselves during their final year of training and only under direct supervision. After isolating and testing by the supervising electrician to make sure the circuits or equipment are safe, all workers must lock out and tag. All apprentices must be taught to always apply their personal lock and tag, and then test before they touch. They must do this under supervision. This is a vital safe working procedure apprentices must learn from the start of their training. Every circuit you work on must be switched off, or have the fuse cartridge removed. A lockout device must then be attached and padlocked with a completed danger tag attached. Never remove someone else's lock or tag, and always check with those around you before re-energising. Any equipment containing electrical wiring can become live at any time if there is a fault or if someone has not done their job properly. Unexpected situations can occur when you least expect it. Apprentices must be taught from the start of their training that we always test before we touch to make sure it is safe to work on the equipment. Be aware of the limitations of proximity testers. Proximity testers can provide an indication that something is live, but must never be used to prove something has been de-energised. This is a domestic water pump located on a farm. Moisture entered the electrical terminals of the pump motor, which caused the frame of the pump to be live at 246 volts. On investigation, it was found that the pump was plugged into a newly installed socket outlet. Testing proved there was no earth continuity from the socket outlet to the associated switchboard due to a broken earth wire in a nearby junction box. A person died when he touched this water pump. Don't let this be you or one of your workers. Always test before you touch. All apprentices must be provided with effective supervision and guidance throughout their apprenticeship to ensure they learn how to perform their work correctly and safely. Deciding the appropriate level of supervision rests with the employer and supervising electrician. This may vary for different types of work and will depend on the skills and ability of the individual apprentice. In WA, we now use 3 levels of supervision. These are direct, general, and broad. Each of these define minimum working arrangements between apprentices and their supervising electricians. For example, direct supervision means the supervising electrician must remain on site in the immediate work area and within audible range of the apprentice, as far as practically possible. An apprentice must be provided with direct supervision if they are in their first year of training and there is electricity supply to the work site, or if they are undertaking a particular work task for the first time. Further guidance on supervision of apprentices is provided in the Safe Working Guidelines for Electrical Workers, published by Building and Energy. This includes a recommended process for properly assessing the required level of supervision for different types of work, as well as providing guidelines for effective supervision. The Building and Energy booklet sets out recommended safe working practices for all electrical workers. We recommend you get yourself a personal copy and follow the guidance given in it. The extreme hazards of working on or near energised equipment are obvious. This electrician was working on a switchboard that contained energised equipment, and he did not isolate or take adequate precautions. 3 years after this incident, this electrician still does not have full use of his hand. This could happen to you or one of your workers if you don't work safely and risk working on or near live equipment. These next few slides show details of a severe electrical incident that involved a young electrical worker who was working in the electrical switchboard compartment shown here. The isolator was turned off in this compartment. However, terminals on one side of this isolator were still live. The electrician's pliers came into contact with live terminals, causing a large electrical explosion to occur. The arc from the explosion was the cause of the severe burns to the electrical worker. The electrical worker, his supervisor, and the employer all failed to follow the basic procedure of isolating when working in the vicinity of energised equipment. This compartment could have been isolated upstream to eliminate the hazards of working near live terminals. The reason given for not isolating further upstream was that this would have adversely affected production. This is never an excuse to work unsafely. The results of this incident was a much greater loss of production, the cost of replacing and repairing the switchboard compartment, and the devastating ongoing effects of this injury to the young man and his family. These next few slides depict a recent fatality in Victoria. A 25-year-old electrical worker was repairing this air conditioner. After isolating and carrying out his repairs, he energised the air conditioner to check it was working properly. Once he confirmed the air conditioner was working, he did not isolate again before finishing internal electrical work and replacing the covers. So he continued working on this equipment while the electrical control panel was energised. This electrical worker was killed when he made contact with live terminals within the air conditioner control panel. Isolating the air conditioner unit would have prevented this young electrical worker's death. Always remember to lock out and tag every circuit you work on, every time. We must be teaching all workers how to work safely. Don't let this happen at your workplace. This video demonstrates what happens when a fault is applied to a switchboard. This explosion was performed under controlled conditions to demonstrate what can happen when the rules are not followed. When you don't follow the rules, you are at risk of electric shock, arc flash burns, or even death. You should be aware that death from electric shock only takes a minor body contact with live equipment. It does not take large explosions or major body contact to kill. The difference between a fatality and a minor electric shock can just be the path current takes through the body, the position your body is in, or the materials you may be in contact with. With many electrocutions, the visible injuries are quite innocuous. There are no second chances in many electrical contact scenarios. The industry basic safety principle is don't work on live equipment, but it is also very dangerous to be working near live equipment, as the same risks apply. The most effective way of eliminating the risk is to remove supply. Here we show a switchboard where the main switch is off, but there is still power to terminals on one side of the switch, as you can see by the lit up tester. Therefore, there is still access to energised equipment in this switchboard. So the recommended action is to either isolate further upstream from the switchboard or compartment you're working in, remove the service fuse, or arrange for the network operator to temporarily disconnect from the network at the pole or service pillar. All cables must be treated as live, not just actives. This is a photo of a socket outlet installed in a roof space for a light. An electrical apprentice had turned off the light switch, but had not turned off or locked out the circuit at the switchboard. There was a broken neutral at the socket outlet. The broken neutral was energised. The 22-year-old apprentice did not test before touching the neutral and was killed. Employers and supervisors should encourage the safety basics for electrical workers working in our industry. Assume nothing, believe no one, check everything. Never assume a circuit or equipment is not live. Do not trust anyone who tells you something is not live. Check it yourself. Always use a voltage tester or multimeter to test and confirm the equipment you are working on is not live. Test before you touch, always. We want to make it absolutely clear that the employer and supervising electrician have responsibility to provide effective supervision to workers, in particular apprentices, to ensure that they work safely. A culture where apprentices and less experienced workers feel free to ask questions and raise concerns if they are unsure should be developed and encouraged. Building and Energy's safe working guidelines provide recommendations on the appropriate level of supervision for apprentices in different work situations. You can download a copy of the guidelines from Building and Energy's website. So in summary, don't work on or near live equipment. Always ensure you are providing effective supervision of apprentices, appropriate to the work required. After you have isolated, tested, and secured the equipment or circuits to be worked on, ensure apprentices apply their personal lock and tag and test before they touch. Never take risks and shortcuts. Always follow safe work practices. Everyone deserves to go home from work safely, every day. Remember, the most important reason for making your workplace safe isn't at work at all. Encourage electrical apprentices and workers to ask questions if they are unsure about anything. As their supervisor, you are the best person to provide them with help and advice about technical matters and working safety. You can contact Building and Energy if you need assistance, have questions, or want support. Building and Energy is the technical and safety regulator responsible for electricity and gas safety in Western Australia. We also license electrical contractors, electricians, and electrical apprentices. Building and Energy is a new government agency formed by merging the former Energy Safety and WA Building Commission. If you have any questions, Building and Energy's contact details are on the screen. Building and Energy would like to acknowledge and thank Energy Safe Victoria for developing the apprentice safety concept, presentation, and video, and for allowing to use and share with the people of Western Australia.